Have you ever walked into a room knowing that you were finally safe, but your body did not get the memo? Do you know what I'm talking about? You've done the work, you've earned the degree or your credentials. You're nowhere near the person who once hurt you, and still your heart is racing, your throat tightens up, and you hear a voice that you thought that you had left behind. Sometimes the past doesn't just pleasantly knock on your door. Sometimes it shows up in your chest. That happened to Annie. Happened to her on the day that she was supposed to do her first solo surgery to become the doctor, the surgeon she had trained to be. Annie lived it. That was her life. This is her story, and I'm telling it for her. The veterinarian clinic was quiet. It was supposed to be a good kind of quiet. Early evening, a horse properly sedated and ready for surgery. This was it. Annie's first solo surgery as an equine surgeon. Years of study, sleepless nights, exams that nearly broke her. All of it had led to this horse, to this very moment. She had gone over everything in her mind dozens of times. She knew the anatomy, the risks, the odds. The techs were waiting for her cue. The anesthesiologist was watching the horse's breathing, monitoring the entire room. Someone asked, "Doctor, are we ready?" Annie reached for the scalpel, and that's when it happened. Not outside, not at home, all inside her head, as clear as if the narcissists were standing right behind her. She heard the words, "You are stupid. You can't do anything right. You can't make a decision if your life depended on it, Annie, and you can't save this horse's life." The room didn't change, but everything inside her did. Her hand hovered over the tray. Her fingers just wouldn't close around that scalpel. Her chest tightened. The world felt too sharp and too far away, both at the same time. She wasn't looking at the horse anymore. She was back in a kitchen with him, his face laughing as he tore her down. The tech cleared his throat softly and said, "Doctor?" She swallowed. Nothing went down. Another thought slipped in. The cruel one she knew by heart. "You think you're a doctor? Don't make me laugh." Annie's stomach rolled. "Give me just a minute," she said, and somehow her voice sounded steady. "Check his vitals again." She stepped away from the table. 1, 2, 3 steps out of the OR into the bathroom. And there she bent over and threw up. This was supposed to be her first day operating solo. Instead, she was doubled over, her hands on her knees, eyes burning, wondering if her narcissistic husband had been right all along. Her mind started its familiar panicked race. "You can't do this. You're going to kill that horse. You're going to prove your narcissistic husband right." She pressed her palms against the bathroom stall, and she made herself breathe in and out, and then in and out again. And somewhere in the middle of her shaky breaths, another memory popped up. This time it wasn't of him. It was of that horse. She had spent all afternoon with him, standing in his stall, watching his every move, monitoring his vitals, checking his pain level, his chestnut coat, white blaze down his face, eyes that followed Annie's every move. He had pressed his forehead into her chest for a moment, as if he was listening to her heartbeat, as if he recognized something in her. Then she heard the owner's voice in her mind. "We trust you, doctor. Do what you think is best." Not "you're stupid," not "you can't make a decision." "We trust you." Annie realized she was standing between two voices. The old one that had trained her to flinch and to fear, and the current one asking her to step into who she is now. If she walked away, she knew what it would mean, not just for the horse, but for her. It would mean that even here, even in the equine OR, where the narcissist never stood, he was going to be in charge of the room and in charge of her. Annie straightened up, cleaned herself up, and quietly she said under her breath, not to her staff, not to the horse, but to the ghost of the narcissist, "You don't get to be here." She turned, walked back into the OR. The team looked up when she came through the door. No one asked her what had happened. They didn't know that she had been bargaining with a voice from her past. She walked back to the table, laid her hand gently on the horse's neck for a moment, feeling the slow, drugged breath under her palm. "Okay," she said, more to herself than to anybody else. "Let's get started." She knew from the beginning it was a controversial call to operate. Some vets would have chosen a completely different route. The odds weren't perfect, but in the moment, it wasn't about perfection. It was about whether she was going to let fear make her small, whether or not she was going to do what was necessary to save this horse's life. She talked the team through the plan, step by step. This incision, this structure, watch this vessel, be ready for this. Her hand found the scalpel this time, and it closed around it perfectly. Her stomach still felt tender. Her heart still beat probably a little too fast, but her training was there and it took over. Her skill was there. And underneath all of it was her determination. She made the first cut. Surgery was a long one. There were moments her breath caught up in her throat, moments where she could feel the shadow of old doubts. They were trying to sneak in, but she stayed with that horse, one decision, one moment at a time, one careful movement at a time. Hours later, when they finally closed, her shoulders were aching, her back hurt, her eyes were burning, but the horse's vital signs were holding. He was moved into recovery, and Annie stood there, one hand lightly on the stall door, not quite ready to leave. "You did it," one of the techs said. "Gutsy call, doctor. Congratulations, you did it." She gave a tired half smile. "We'll see." A few days later, the clinic wasn't quiet. The chestnut gelding was standing, shifting his weight back and forth, flicking his ears at the birds outside. The light caught his coat, and his white blades just seemed so bright. It was beautiful. Annie stepped into a stall, and the horse turned his head toward her. His eyes were clear now. He was breathing easy. She put her hand on his neck the way she had in surgery. This time he pressed back with more strength. "You're a fighter," she whispered. She didn't know yet how many times this horse would stand between her and giving up. She didn't know that he'd become the one constant in her life that was about to break open in 100 different ways. All she knew in that moment was his name, Red. You don't have to be a veterinarian to know what this story feels like inside. Maybe your operating room was a job interview or a parent-teacher conference or a new relationship or just a quiet night in your own kitchen. On paper, you were safe. The person who hurt you wasn't there, but your body didn't care about the paperwork. Your heart started pounding over nothing. Your stomach turned at the sound of footsteps in the hallway that wasn't even his. And they weren't dangerous. You froze when it was time to speak up or make a decision or to say what you wanted to say. That's what living in constant fight or flight does to a nervous system. It's years of walking on eggshells. Years of tone changes, slammed doors, and sudden rage out of nowhere. Years of learning that one wrong word could flip your whole day. Your body learned to scan for danger all of the time. It learned to brace, to tense, to prepare. So now, even when you're out, you may still feel it. The way you sometimes overthink something, the way you apologize before you've even done anything. It happens. The way maybe you hear their voice in your head telling you you can't do it, that you're stupid, you're too dramatic. Any of those words that are triggers. And it'll happen right at the moment you're about to do something brave. But that's not you being broken. It isn't. That's your body remembering what you went through. And that's going to happen, and it's okay. Annie was in the operating room, not the living room when it happened to her. She was surrounded by colleagues, not a narcissistic husband, but the old training was still there. Her fear wasn't about the horse. It was about all the time she'd been told that she couldn't trust herself. Maybe you know that feeling. You stand at the edge of choice, don't you? You ask yourself, do you leave, stay, take the job, set a boundary, make the call? And suddenly the room is filled with a voice from the past. Who do you think you are? You're just going to mess it up. You can't survive without me. Those words or something like them are going to pop into your head. And maybe you've had your own moment in the bathroom throwing up before an important decision. You step away, you feel sick, you think about quitting before you even start. If that's you, I want you to hear this. Stepping outside for a moment doesn't mean that you have failed. Absolutely not. It means your body is telling the truth about how hard all of this is. What matters is what happens next, not what happened back then. Sometimes courage doesn't look like marching forward without fear. Often it doesn't look like that. Sometimes it looks like throwing up in the bathroom, washing your face, and walking back into the room anyway, like Annie did. Not because the fear is gone, but because you suddenly believe in yourself 100%. Because just for that moment, you refuse to let the old voice have the final say. This one's for you if you've ever froze in front of something that you love. This is for the woman who left the relationship and still gets startled at every text tone. For the one who almost walked away from a dream because she heard his voice in her head louder than her own voice. For the one who stepped outside to catch her breath, convinced that she was weak, and then went back in anyway. If your body still braces for impact, it's not because you're failing at healing. No, not at all. It's because you survived something your nervous system hasn't forgotten yet. Like Annie, you're allowed to say, you don't get to be here anymore. You get to say it to that voice that doesn't belong in the room anymore, even if you have to say it with shaking hands. You're not alone in that fight. You know, Annie's story isn't just about one woman and one horse named Red. It's about what happens when the voice of the past tries to follow you into the life you're building now, and the quiet, stubborn courage it takes to answer back. If any part of this story feels like your story, I'm so glad you're here. Your shaking hands don't cancel your strength. Your fear doesn't erase your truth. If you're so inclined, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. I'm Keil Hackley, attorney, author of the book Undercurrent, and your host here of the Are You Annie podcast. As always, please remember that you are stronger than you ever realized. You are a warrior against narcissistic abuse, and you are tenacious, and you're never, ever going to give up on what's important to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for always showing up. And until next time, please take good care of yourself. And I will see you soon. Bye.